Here's Macy Johnson with our first American Dreamer, public speaker and author Larry Thompson.
Welcome everyone to My American Dream. I am joined here today with Larry Thompson. Thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
So let's get into it. Let's talk about what your life was like as a child and some of the difficulties that you felt.
As a young child, you know, I realized we didn't have very much, but neither did the rest of the kids in my neighborhood, so I thought that was how life was for everyone. A misconception is often that if your kids are not from means or have finances, then they struggle. But a lot of good homes just don't have the money.
Right.
I had very nurturing parents that loved me, took good care of me, encouraged me, supported me doing well in school. No, I just remember, you know, I slept in a crib till I was 5 because I didn't have a bed, and I thought it was fine. My parents didn't talk about money in front of us, so I never really had the stress. I never had to hear the stress of it that I know some kids have to. So I didn't really know.
Right. So you are an established author of 2 incredible books.
Sure. I never set out to write a book. What happened for me is I began coaching and teaching in schools. And I was always drawn to kids that had a little different struggle than somebody else. So I would find them and help them. And then I took over a school that was really failing, that served kids in the foster care system. And just realizing how backwards we had done school discipline and how we weren't reaching the kids by the traditional methods we were using. So I started to explore and do something different, and it really began to work. And then out of that, people started asking me to help them, help their schools. And so the next stage was, I can't get to everybody, but maybe if they could read how, I could help them that way.
So do you feel like you've changed lives? Do you have like a particular story where you were moved, that they were like, wow?
Probably one story that will always stick with me is I was working in the prison systems in Ohio, and they just told me this won't work and these kids are different, and I just couldn't believe that. So I went in that day ready to take on the fight, and a young man got in a lot of trouble, and the traditional way was to take him in handcuffs and put him in a cell, you know, and so I said, can I do what I've been trying to show you guys to do today with this kid?
Please, just one time, please.
And I took him into the room, and by the time we were all done, I told him, I can't take you back to the class till you have a plan so your brain doesn't respond the same way twice. So you have to interrupt that pattern, and you got to come up with something for me. And the second thing is I want you to correct it with your teacher because I want your relationship to be back to good so he doesn't kick you out again.
Right.
And the kid went back, and this is a very tough kid that grew up in the gangs in the streets. And I watched him get choked up telling his teacher, I've been disrespecting. And here's what I'm going to show you I can do if you'll give me an opportunity to try again.
Wow.
And not only did the teacher tap him on the chest and say, you're welcome back in my room, young man. It was a very moving moment. But I went back in May, and that kid won the most outstanding student, most improved student of the year.
Wow. I mean, I come from single parent household, and they have that statistic where you're 6 times more likely to drop out of high school. You're not going to become successful. You know, what are some of the things that you feel is the most often overlooked?
Well, I feel like we make it a little harder than it needs to be at times because I go back to the skill of self-control or regulating yourself. People like to say, oh, this child's not motivated. Well, really, to me, motivation is just another component of self-control. And self-control is actually like a muscle. We don't strengthen that muscle. We say things like, you're out, or here's your consequence. But if there's nothing for the child to do to build the muscle, it changes nothing in the child.
So do you feel that you had a mentor growing up or someone that you looked to that really, really made you connect with them?
I think I had a lot of mentors, you know, as I go back and look at different stages of my life. And athletics happened to be something that kind of got me recognized as a young kid. So a lot of it was coaches for me that encouraged and knew the right things to say when I would want to give up on myself. And then, you know, that made me want to teach. And then when I got actually into the schools as an adult and looked at them from an adult lens, I realized how many things weren't working.
That's what I think it's all about. It's just being able to identify when it's a bad day or when there's something going on with the student. It's really connecting with them. It's about the relationship that you're building with them. So where can people find more information about this book if they want to go pick it up?
We have a website, Responsibility Centered Discipline, and the parent book is linked to that, and it kind of shares where we're speaking and the schools that we work with and our schedule and those types of things.
Okay, so now that we've gotten to this point, what would you define as your American dream?
We have to rebuild the way we do school discipline, and that's
Right.
my dream, is to see that change and our kids become different levels of success, all kids.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much,
You're
Larry, for
welcome.
joining me on this incredible episode, and we will see you all next week for another episode of My American Dream.